Hey gang, Jake here. I wasn't planning on uploading this, but considering how often I talk about Smash and the fact that I really love indie games, I figured I might as well bring it up. If you didn't hear, Fraymakers got officially pitched on Kickstarter yesterday. It's a platform fighter featuring various indie characters that fight it out. Now, I'll admit, that's a premise we've seen a lot of recently. Sometimes it goes really well, sometimes it doesn't go so well, sometimes bounty battle happens and we all wish we could purge our memories, but generally these games don't get much traction and are stuck with small fan bases. This is not the case for Fraymakers, as it got funded on Kickstarter within 3 hours of getting pitched. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. It's genuinely insane. Of course, the reason this game is getting so much support is because it's from the same team that made Super Smash Flash 2, which is a fan game that's been supported for the last decade, and is way better than it has any right to be. So, yeah, I just figured, talk about it. The first thing I want to talk about is the music, because it's really, really good. The game is going to have a jazz soundtrack consisting of remixes from various games, and the 2 tracks we've heard are beautiful. I don't know how well this style is going to cover songs from more serious games, but apparently the band that's handling the soundtrack, Super Soul Brothers, is fairly reputable, so I'm willing to bet it'll be great. The graphics look fantastic. The game is running at 60 FPS, and all of the character art we've seen thus far looks amazing, so I'm looking forward to seeing more characters realized in this style. I do have some problems though. Well, Taro looks kinda funky in this style. The gun boots being that detailed kinda creeps me out, and his arms look like penguin flippers. Also, I really don't like the UI. I think it looks overly minimalist, but that's minor stuff. I'm willing to bet that the kinks get worked out and the game looks even more breathtaking by release. The gameplay looks really great as well. We didn't get to see much, but as you can guess, it looks like Smash-style action. Of course, 4 of the characters on the base roster have been in other platform fighters, so I'm sure that helped design. I can't speak for Fish Bungeon, but Orcane looks like a near-perfect lift from Rivals, and Waltaro looks like if his Indie Pogo moveset was more in-depth. I'm not super convinced of the assist mechanic. They kinda look really unfun for competitive play, but we're still really far from release, so I'll bet we get more details on that eventually. As for the roster, well, that's kinda where I fall out of it. Don't get me wrong, the size isn't necessarily a problem, but these characters aren't exactly the types I normally play in fighting games. Sure, I enjoy Rivals of Aether and Downwell, but that doesn't mean I want to play as Orcane or Waltaro. You know what? Screw it. Mini video inside the mini video. Welcome to Dr. Ninjake's top 10 characters to put in Fraymakers. Number 10, Claren. Really, she's just my favorite Rivals character. I know we've already got a Rivals character, but technically they haven't made a rule against multiple franchise reps, and Claren isn't like Orcane at all. So I think they'll be fine with it. Number 9, Stardrop. He's adorable, he's a lot of fun in Indie Pogo, and he's a totally unique character being essentially a sentient ball of energy. So I think he'd be neat. Number 8, Robin from Iconoclast. She's a really neat character with a fun design. Her toolkit of bombs and blasters and a wrench is really neat, and she's honestly just adorable and should be in more stuff. Number 7, The Stranger from Fury. I think that the more serious and gritty side of indie games should also be represented, and while The Watcher already kinda does that, The Stranger could help, and he's got a really neat toolkit with the samurai sword and the dashes and the laser gun, so I think he'd be cool. Number 6, Zara Sinclair from Double Cross. She's another really cute design, and she's also a major badass. What with being a detective, you could maybe feature some investigation-themed attacks in her moveset, and, she fights a lot in her home game, so it would make sense. Number 5, Philia from Skullgirls. I know that the people behind Skullgirls have been steeped in controversy lately, but Mike Z is no longer associated with the brand, and the characters are still really cool. So, yeah, I would have put Beowulf because he's my personal favorite character, but I know Philia's the better pick, being the mascot and all. Number 4, Dust, from Dust and Elysian Tale. He's an icon in the indie scene. Plus, he's from a character action game, so putting him in a fighting game like this shouldn't be too difficult. Also, he'd fit right in with the rest of the cast. So yeah, throw him in there, make him our first sortie. Number 3, Copen from the Gunvolt games. This character's just begging to be a high tier in a fighting game. He's got lots of tools that would probably be really toxic, but also really fun if implemented properly, and I just think he'd be really neat. Also, I just really like Gunvolt. It's kind of my thing. For number 2, when it comes to Cave Story, the obvious answer is, quote, he's the protagonist and he's got the biggest arsenal, so it's kind of a no-duh situation. But if you've played Cave Story, then you know that the side protagonist, Curly, is a way more charismatic fighter. So if she could show up in some capacity, whether that's as an alternate character or an alternate skin or maybe an assist, that'd be dope. And of course, number 1, if you know me, this was obvious. If you looked at the thumbnail, this was obvious. Gunvolt from the Azure Striker Gunvolt series would also be sick as hell. This would make his 3rd fighting game appearance, and he's not particularly difficult to imagine. He might be hard to implement, but I guarantee that if he did, he'd be fun as all get out. So I'm all for it. Plus, you know, it's Gunvolt. I gotta rep my boy. I actually made a concept for a Gunvolt moveset for Indie Pogo, and again, Gunvolt's already in Blade Strangers, so there's plenty of potential. You just gotta pick him up. The last thing I want to talk about actually has more to do with another indie platform fighter, Indie Pogo. I know that a lot of people in this community are flipping out, and it's a weird time to be a fan, and I know that a lot of people are taking this opportunity to bash Indie Pogo, but I think it's important to remember and realize that these are, on a basic level, very different games. Indie Pogo is a bit of a more shallow experience. There's less to be done from a competitive perspective. But from a fan perspective, this game just oozes a love for indie games that you can't get anywhere else, including in Fraymakers. Fraymakers, while it does show respect for the source material, is going to be more focused on providing an engaging competitive experience. And that's great. What I'm trying to say is the games don't invalidate each other, and if you love the idea of Fraymakers and want to try something like that, consider picking up Indie Pogo. I guarantee you will have fun. That's all I really wanted to say. Thank you guys for watching. This was meant to be a much smaller video than it ended up being, but I had a lot of fun making it. You know the drill. Like, subscribe, bell, Twitter. If you want to support Fraymakers on Kickstarter, I'll link that down below. If you want to pick up Indie Pogo, which you should definitely do, I'll link the Steam page below. Thanks again, remember to wear your mask, and have a good one. Bye.